Hello, I'm Stefan Rest, and today I want to show you how to make a Damascus wedding ring using simple knife making tools. The idea is to make this ring with minimal tools and everything that a blacksmith or a knife maker will probably already have in his shop. So firstly is Damascus steel, which not everyone will probably have, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to source. This is 105 layers of 15N20 and 1070. I forged this up a while ago and I just cut this off of another billet. I'm going to punch the holes rather than drill it, and for that I'm going to need a punch, and then to drift the holes bigger I'm going to use a series of drifts until finally I'm going to use this little slug to drift it to its final dimension, which is very close to my finger size that I've got here. Normally you would want to use something like a bolster plate, but luckily for me this slug just fits into my pressure hole, and I'm not going to need anything like that. Also a pair of tongs, a hammer and an anvil. Also going to need a forge, files or a belt grinder. The inside unfortunately you won't be able to do with a belt grinder, so you'll need files for that, or something like a Fordham or any rotary tool, Dremel, anything like that. You could do this on a lathe, but the idea of this is to do it as simple as possible, and also I don't have a lathe anyway. Here you'll be able to see the pattern in this steel. This is going to result in a pretty straightforward and just linear pattern. The upsetting and everything that I'm going to do to this piece is going to cause a couple of interesting patterns to develop in here, but it's mostly going to be straight. On my wedding ring you'll be able to see the pattern that I've got here is a little bit different. This was a twisted billet that that I punched basically through the end of the billet to get to this. This is 1080 and 15N20, and we could expect a very similar finish on the 1070 and 15N20. So just to do a very quick run through of the process, I'm going to heat this up, going to square it up a little bit and then start forming it into a rounder shape. I want to upset it more in this dimension to get it to almost cylindrical like. That's going to deform the pattern a little bit and might give us some interesting results at the end of the day. And I'm going to use this punch to punch a hole through from this face. Then I'll start using the drifts to just make the hole a little bit bigger. On this drift I might actually go and form the ring, upset it even more to draw out in that dimension, and then I'll be able to cut it in half and make more than one ring from it. And then finally, just before I'm done, I'll just run this slug through once or twice, and then it'll be very close to its final inside shape. Then I'll go and just remove material off the outside, start rounding the sides, and then I'll start polishing the in and outsides of the ring. Then etching, and she's done. Okay, so it's getting to a point now where it's basically square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rounding it by hammering in all of these corners. That's also going to push the material up in this direction again, and then I'll be able to start flipping it and drawing it into this direction, upsetting it. So it can actually go down to a smaller diameter than what the final ring is going to be, because it's going to stretch out again as soon as I start punching and drifting the holes.
One of the easiest ways that I could improve this process is by making a pair of purpose-built tongs. So I'm just using all of my tongs that I've already got, and nothing is really ideal for gripping the pieces of steel this small and hammering in these directions. In the future, if I make more rings, I'll definitely start building something like more like a wolf jaw tong or something like that.
So now I've got it into a nice round profile. about 2 centimeters, so we'll definitely be able to get 2 rings out of this. Switching to this drift now, and then basically going to knock it up to here, and then I'm going to start drawing it out on the drift a little bit, spreading the material a little bit thinner to make it like white.
Another improvement would also be having longer drifts. That would make it easier to hold the drift by hand as opposed to having a tongue between your hand and the actual drift. And it's definitely going to make it easier to hammer on the ring while it's on that drift.
Okay, so now I've got it nice and round. The hole is kind of centered. I'm going to move over to one drift bigger and then basically repeat the process again. Got it at the final dimension now for the inside diameter. Left myself enough room to play with on the outside diameter so I can grind away all of that. I'm gonna use normal knife making heat treating regime basically for this now, in terms of just annealing, normalizing all of that. So just going to heat it up to above critical, to just up to critical, and just below. So basically everything up to the point that you would normally go and quench. I'm not going to quench this, it's going to be too hard to file. Normally your damascus actually does show up better if you did quench, but this is so small that I don't want to take any risks of scaling or anything like that, and I don't have the correct tools to cut this once it is actually hardened steel. 2 other tools that I didn't speak of earlier is a ring sizer like this, and then also a sizer like this. This is very useful if you want to determine the size of an existing ring. If I take my own for instance, I drop it on here, I can see that it is around about an S or S and a half, between an S and a T. So another thing I could also do is I can take this little thing, it almost looks like a cable tie, pop it over my finger till it gets to a comfortable fit, and then use that to determine my size. You do get various versions of these. This is just the cheap aluminium one. This is the cheapest one I could find. This is also just cheap plastic, also the cheapest I could find at when I bought this. You get nice steel mandrels like these, and then also sets of steel rings that you can actually put the ring on to see if it feels comfortable or not, which is I think a little bit more useful than this, but for quick and on the fly measurements this thing is perfect. So this is what our blank looks like now after our forging last night. It's not completely concentric circle, but it's good enough for what we want to do. I want to make this ring the same size as my own. I do actually think we'll be able to get 2 rings out of this, so I'm just going to cut this down the middle like that. For myself, my ring size, like I said, between an S and a T. This thing is still quite a ways off from that, so we've got plenty of meat that we can file away on the inside to get this nice and round on the inside before we start working on the outside as well. This ring sizer and ring mandrel will obviously come into play if you are making a ring out of scratch a lot sooner than in this video. So this will also determine the size of your different punches and drifts that you're going to use. So I made this one to give myself a little bit of play on the inside here, so that I can file away to get it nice and round, because I knew that my lugs weren't going to be completely concentrical. So this should be 19.2, around about 19 millimeters on the inside to fit my hand comfortably. At the moment we're sitting at 18.2, 18, yeah, so there's 17, around about 18. So we've got about a millimeter that we need to take off here. So half a millimeter on the inside face that we need to remove, and that we can remove to get this nice and smooth and polished on the inside. The outside will determine what we're going to do with that once we're a little bit closer to finish. What I also want to do is cut this down the middle and then start thinning it out, or in the width dimension. At the moment we're sitting at around about just under 20 millimeters, 19 point something. So I'll cut this in half, and I'll have quite a couple of millimeters of play to either side to be able to make 2 rings with this blank. Okay, so now I've got these 2 blanks. I'm going to put the one away for now, and we're just going to continue working with the other one. So my next step is going to be to flatten out these 2 faces, get it to very close to final thickness or final width, and then I'm going to start working on the inside. I'm going to start by flattening the face that we cut with the grinder, and then flip it over, start flattening the other side, and continuously checking it with the vernier. Just make sure that I've got it an even width all the way around. I'm going to aim for around about 7 millimeters, which is very close to my own ring, and then if I want to make it a little bit thinner, then I can go thinner. It's at 400 grit now, so I'm going to switch over and start doing this face. Pretty happy with the width now, so I'm going to switch over and start polishing this face that we just did on a 60 grit. Okay, so both faces are nice and flat now, so I'm just going to grind up a little bit on this side, just for my own curiosity to see what the pattern is coming out like before we start working on the inside diameter. There we go. I think this is going to be a nice fine pattern. So on these faces, unfortunately, most of that's going to be ground away, but it's pretty cool. You can see all the layers being pushed to one side there from the punching and the drifting. Fairly cool. Okay, so now we need to start filing out the inside to get to very close to our final inside dimensions, and also get this into a nice concentric circle. One of the easy ways to spot where the high and low spots are to start filing in them is to just basically put it onto a known round mandrel, and then we can start seeing where we've got high and low spots. So I'm just going to continuously do that and then file away those high spots. I need this to cover the S over there. It's covering the R at the moment. So I'm going to start rounding the inside, breaking these corners, rounding out the inside of it, making it a more comfortable carry. And then also this will drop it down a little bit further, so I don't want to overshoot my inside dimension. We'll start using my Dremel now to just round off the inside and start sanding it a little bit and get this up to a higher grip. Here's another useful tool. It's a jewelry vise, so you can hold it in your hand while you're working with whatever you've got clamped in there, and it actually looks a little bit like a post vise, which is also pretty cool. Okay, so the inside is nice and even to a certain extent now, and I'm going to switch over to one of the sanding drums and work it further with that. This is a little Scotch Brite wheel that I've got on here, so this is going to polish out the inside nicely. Now I've got a little polishing mop on here, and I'm just going to polish out the inside. Now the inside is nice and polished, so now we can start working on the outside diameter. So now I'm going to mark out the outside diameter using the inside as a reference, and I'm going to do it at about 2.5 millimeters, and then I can always like thin it out from there on. Just using a Koki because I'm all out of marking fluid. Okay, so I'm just marking the inside, one side, and then I'm going to grind that at a slight bevel, and then I'll move over to the other side, grind to that line, and then start thinning it out a little bit more. I've got my platen set up at a slight angle towards this side, so that means it's going to cut with an angle like that, and I'm just going to cut to the line, very close to the line on the 60 grit, and then I'll start switching it out to a little bit of a finer belt, 120, and then I'll flip it over and cut the other side. You can see that the new markings on the back side is pretty close to the final cuts that we've got here anyway, and because it's slightly slanted in that direction, as we're cutting it with the slant in this direction with this face up, we're going to make a ridge here in the middle. So I'm going to start grinding and then just see that I get that ridge around about the middle there, and that's going to help us with doming the outside face as well. So let's get started.
Yeah, I'm using different parts of the platen to start profiling the outside diameter of this ring, and then also going up the different belt crits.
So we've got it at 800 grit belt finish at the moment now, and I'm going to do some hand sanding to it, and then I'll take it to the buffer and we can put it into the edge to see what the pattern is that comes out.
One of the important things to address while hand sanding is any sharp ridges and facets that you couldn't get to with a belt grinder. You can easily do that with a leather-backed sanding stick or something that has a little bit of a softer backing, and that will round over any of those corners or edges that you don't want. If you're wondering why I have so many smaller versions of normal tools, it's because my wife has a thing for small equipment. Okay, I'm just realizing what that sounds like, but let's go with it. Every now and again for birthdays or Christmas, she'll buy me what she sees as a cute piece of equipment, and that's why I've got these jewelry vices and this small little vice. I've also got a tiny anvil, tiny hammers, and just about everything in a smaller version. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so it's at a nice even 800 grit now. I'm going to take it to the polishing mop and then we can put it into the edge.
For polishing, I'm putting the ring onto a dowel just so I don't have to hold it in my finger when I'm polishing it and then run the risk of it getting caught and ripping my finger into the buff.
At this stage the ring is ready to be worn. It's polished on both the in and the outsides, no sharp edges or any corners on it, and it fits. It's a little bit on the big side for me. I think I overshot my inside diameter a little bit, but someone else might still be able to wear this one day. I'm going on to etching now, because you don't want to not etch a Damascus ring, although with wear you might actually develop the pattern or expose the pattern after a while from just being in contact with acidic substances during your day. But we don't have the time for that, and we actually want to see the pattern on this thing. Before I etch it, I am going to just clean out the out and the insides with some acetone to get all of the gunk and oils and everything off, especially coming off the buffer. All of that buffing compound is going to inhibit etching, so I want to get all of that off, clean it out nicely, pop it into the edge. But before then, I'm just going to take a Koki or Sharpie and then just coat the inside to keep it from etching on the inside, because I want this to stay polished and nice and fine. Get my rag nice and soaked. Obviously you don't want any oils and stuff on your fingers now to come into contact with it, so I'm going to give it a nice wipe and then move it over to another clean piece of paper towel. Got a fairly strong ferric chloride solution here. I'm going to leave it in there for a couple of minutes, so 5 minutes or so. Then I'm going to take it out and then just give it this light sanding with 2000 grit paper and then pop it back in just to get a little bit of definition in the different layers. Okay, time for the big reveal. So I've also got some bicarbonate of soda in here that I can use to neutralize the ferric. So let's just pop it right over there. And then we see our pattern. I'll put some stills on there so that we can see it a little bit better, but it's looking good to me. So the ring is done now. It's etched. I had it in coffee last night, overnight, but the coffee didn't really have any effect on it. I think the coffee went off or something. I'll make up a fresh batch at some later stage and pop it in there. What the coffee would normally do is it will darken the darker parts of it, and then you've got more of a contrasting edge. Just some final thoughts on this ring and rings like this, on this whole process. This is my process, and I didn't put a hell of a lot of thought into how I'm doing it and what I'm doing here. I just saw I needed to make a hole in a piece of steel, and this is the way that I decided to do it. So there's obviously a lot of room for improvement. Another way that you can add an interesting dimension to the ring is by creating your damascus out of more interesting steels. Something other than just the 1070 and 15N20 like these rings. That could lead to the steels reacting to different coloring agents like coffees or different etchings in different colors, and could come out very nicely. I've made some scrap damascus out of saw blades, all different types of saw blades, and when I put it into coffee overnight, they actually came out almost caramel like, which is very interesting. And then there's different ways of also etching your existing damascus. Almost want to regret saying this as well, but I went to a spa a while ago and I was in a steam room and was rubbed with salt and a little bit of everything. Very interesting day in my life. But my ring came out almost black after that, which was very interesting. I haven't tried to recreate that, but I guess boiling it over, or hanging it over a pot of boiling salt water would give you a similar result to that, or even over a kettle. So you can experiment with different things like that. The possibilities are as endless as your imagination, as I said earlier as well. On the point of finishes, you're basically limited also again by your imagination and what you have available. You can leave the ring polished so that as you go through life and you do get little bits of acid and acidic stuff on the ring, it starts etching itself. Some people have done with kitchen knives that I've seen. You can go and put this into an oven and temper it, and it can give you the different temper colors. I don't know how long that will last. It's something that I also want to give a go. You can also obviously blue it, different bluing salts. Just be careful, some of those are carcinogenic and poisonous and could hurt you or your client. Just be sure that what you're using is safe then. Then also obviously just etch it in ferric chloride or your etchant of choice, and then with that also comes coffee, which is basically also just an etchant that's going to give your darker colors a little bit more of a darker tinge. So you can do basically anything with this that you would normally could normally do with any Damascus blade or Damascus piece of your choice. Just as a closing point, I also want to just highlight some possible health issues that people can have with wearing rings. I myself don't have a lot of knowledge and experience in this. It's just things that I've picked up over the years from talking to people and reading up a little bit on the rings. So some people can be allergic to certain metals. A lot of people can't wear gold jewelry, can't wear silver, or can only wear nickel, silver or platinum. Just make sure that when you are wearing a ring or selling it to someone, that they can actually tolerate having a steel with a low nickel content in contact with their skin. On the point of nickel, I'm a little bit wary about putting pure nickel sheets in the Damascus. It does give a very nice effect with the nice silver line running through, a thin silver, bright silver line. Unfortunately, you are going to be in contact, constant skin contact with that nickel, and that could also cause some nickel allergies and some allergic reactions to that. So just be cognizant of that too. One thing that I've seen people do to get around that is to line the inside diameter of the ring with silver or brass or gold or wood or whatever. That's great. Your point of the most contact on the outside of your finger, on the inside diameter of the ring, is then protected. but you are still touching the ring on two sides almost constantly anyway. So you're not limiting the contact, yes, but it's not taking the contact, your skin contact, away totally. So just be aware of that as well. There's also a point to be made about hardening or not hardening the steel. If you do harden Damascus, it usually shows up your contrast between your layers a little bit better. If you don't harden it, it could look a little bit fuzzy or a little bit less pronounced. If you are going to harden it, you should temper the ring back quite a lot, even more than a blade. I would say to a deep blue, because if you have a hard piece of steel on your finger and something does happen where you need to remove the ring and it gets stuck on your finger, you don't want to go to someone and say, listen, cut this off, and the tool that they have cannot cut through hardened steel. So just be aware of that as well, and just if you are making this for someone else, just make sure that they know of the dangers and what is entailed with that. Obviously people are wearing tungsten carbide and titanium rings and all of that. That poses similar problems, and there is ways around that, but just know that it's not just taking a side cutter and cutting this ring off. Hardened or not, it's still a high carbon ring and it's still going to be stronger than normal mild steel, but if it's in the hardened state, it could be even more difficult to cut than in the unhardened state. If you've watched all the way till here, I want to give you a big thanks. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I've enjoyed making this ring, and I enjoy continuously making things like this. If you found this helpful, please let me know, share and subscribe. Also give us a like. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. I'd be happy to answer them. And also if you have any ways that I can improve my process, please let me know. I'm happy to hear it. Cheers.